back. Dr. B here. Welcome to Dr. B Uncensored, where we interview candid thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and founders to tell their story to inspire others to do the same. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Dr. B Show. I'm here with the great Lance Cayko. Lance, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here, Dr. B. I love that.
Thanks, man. Thanks, my brother. Appreciate it. Let's jump right into it. Tell everyone about yourself.
Oh, man. I do too many things. If you look me up on LinkedIn, my moniker is serial entrepreneur. I'm an architect, a builder, real estate developer, podcaster, professional fisherman. I teach between two universities depending on the semester and somehow manage to raise a family of 6.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that. You squeezed it all in a minute.
I know. Yeah. I've got my elevator speech down, bro. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love it, man. I love it. I'm big on education, similar to you. So I know you went to. I did some research, North Dakota State College, North Dakota State University. How has that education helped you in what you're doing today, if
Oh,
at
man.
all?
It was huge. I really kind of, right now, there's a lot of like, on a certain political side of the spectrum where they're sort of poo-pooing this idea of higher education, and that we need more plumbers, we need more electricians. And I go, I think we can have all of the above. I think you need to have an education. I think why close a door? That's really the biggest thing I think it's done for me is and I try to preach that to my children too, is I go like, hey, don't close doors. For instance, my daughter, and I'll get to how it's affected me, but like with her, for example, she's thinking about doing sort of a hybrid like me where I went to tech school first and I got my technical degree for building construction tech, which basically taught me how to be a general contractor, a carpenter. And then I always had that skill set. And I had worked a lot of trades in the summers before that, and I could have already probably done it, but it polished the whole thing for me, right? It made it formal and gave me connections and everything like that. Then nobody could ever take that away from me. Like once I knew how to use a hammer and pound a nail, I could do that forever. Like if somehow all the white collar jobs went away, which would never would happen, but if it did in theory, it's like I can always pound nails. There's always going to be houses to paint. There's always going to be repairs that need to be made. I really felt confident in the fact that I would never starve at that point, or I could always like provide for my family. So that's the number one thing I think it did for me is it just gave me stability and a good footing, because it gave me a technical trade and a skill. And then I layered on top of that when I went to North Dakota State University to be an architect, and then sort of had this beautiful dichotomy going. And that's kind of what's led to my success in businesses. I've been able to vertically integrate my firms. So, we started with architect first, then we started doing some building projects, and then eventually we did real estate development projects. And wearing all three of those hats, I don't think I would have been able to do without being a highly educated person and knowing and being able to actually do all of those things professionally by license, by trade, by skill set, and all of those things. Like my daughter, back to my daughter, she wants to be, she's like, I want to be an interior designer, but I also want to be a cosmetologist. And I go, hey, one of the interior designers who I have hired here, she wanted to do the same thing. And her approach was, she's like, get the 4-year first, then you can go to cosmetology school after that. Like, why close the door? That's where I like the phrase diversity is our strength. Because if you have a diversity of skill set and education, it's like that is your strength. Nobody can ever take that away from you. This is how you become a powerful person, just by empowered, really. You become empowered personally, through education.
Yeah, man, you and I are the same wavelength there because my mom said the same thing. I wanted to be a wrestler. Actually, I had no plans to go to college. She's like, "Damn it, get the piece of paper, and then you can
Yeah.
do whatever you want." But she was right. I wound up getting hurt, and I wound up liking school right after. But yeah, it's always having that diversity, that background, right? Because now I have the doctorate, and then later on in life, kind of came in handy too because I wanted to originally teach full time, and then once I got my doctorate, I was like, you know what, let me try this entrepreneurship thing. But the fact that I have the option to kind of go back to higher ed if I wanted to, it's
Oh, that's the
definitely
other thing too. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, Dr. B. I didn't even touch on that. It's like once I got a master's degree too, it was like, oh, if I wanted to just go into higher ed for the rest of my life, I could do that too, or teach part time. And we did that. I taught for about. I'm not teaching this next semester because the building side of things has just gotten too busy for us, and I want to focus on that and make sure that firm grows, into maturity. But while we were growing the architecture firm, in order to try to, as a startup, we had to like keep our salaries lower than what we probably could have if we were hired at like a bigger firm. And in order to do that, then it was like we had to supplement our income. And so we started teaching part time at the local university at University of Colorado Boulder. And then that also fed into the architecture firm where we were able to like take those students, those best students became our TAs, the TAs became our employees. And it was really a beautiful thing. So again, it's like, why close the door? And I like teaching is so fulfilling. It keeps you fresh. You can always go back to it. It's like one of the most recession proof things you could probably do. So yeah, I'm glad you touched on that.
Thank you for that. And now I teach entrepreneurs, but it's all
Heck
good.
yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about the initiative. I did some research as well from what about the Great Recession 1000 and severance portfolio and raising two kids on your own after no wife no longer in the picture. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Expand on that a little bit.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life for sure. Yeah. So I had children very early. I was 21. We would have been a sophomore in architecture school. So, that's it was daunting because it was like, what does that do for my workload? This is gonna be expensive. Should I drop out? Should I not? Persevered through, got married to then my first wife. Then we had another child. And she just had a lot of, personal things that from her past that really, honestly, I have a lot of empathy for that I don't think she realized she had to deal with at some point once she sort of got into a safe space. Because once we moved to Colorado out of North Dakota, she got into a safe space. And then all of a sudden there was a lot of memories and things that flooded up from her past with her family that came through and she just couldn't deal with. Um, and she ended up leaving me and the two kids for about 3 years. And that was difficult, but it was one of the best things that ever happened to me too. And it took, I would have been 25, 26 when that happened. So I had those two kids all by myself for 3 years. I think Kyler would have been 6, and then Kai would have been 2. So these are really young children,
Really
right?
young.
And like,
Yeah, it's not like the 10 and 12 or like self sufficient. They still
no,
need you, right? Wow.
no, and no family in Colorado that I could rely on. Barely making it with the firm just in its infancy. And but what I really liked is that it forced me to be super creative as a parent, and I appreciated like the most simple things, and I always try to remember to appreciate the most simple things. And I was just talking to my wife about this actually. I was like, you know, when you money isn't everything, but not having it is. Like that's, Kanye West, that was one of like his best lyrics I think he's ever put out. I just love that so much. And I was like, it is everything. And I'll tell you what else is everything is like when you're poor and you're barely making it is you're like me, a single dad or a single mom, that meal at the end of the day is like it. And you can still eat really, really well. You just have to be careful about how you spend that money at the grocery store, right? So I try to actually have that perspective even now as somebody who is doing very well and I don't have to worry about food scarcity or money or anything like that. I don't have that anxiety anymore. It's like I still take being like a frugal foodie very, very seriously, to the point where I'm like, sure, I could go to the farmer's market and buy whatever I want, but I have gardens instead. I run a community garden and I put my sweat and equity and labor into that. And because I want to know where my food's coming from and it tastes better. It's super fresh. You pick it the same day, that sort of thing. I hunt and fish. We eat a lot of that, wild game and everything like that. Um, but it was one of the first tests I had about the law of polarity. And I didn't realize what that was until I was about 40. I'm 42. And I've been doing a lot of guesting on shows like yours, Dr. B. And I would tell these stories and I would talk about like negative and positive in sort of a metaphorical way and a metaphysical way. I'd be like, you can't have electricity if you don't have a negative and a positive ion and all these other things. Finally, a host, I can't remember who it was on another show, they go, you know what you're describing, right? And I go, what? The law of polarity. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's a law of physics. They're like, this is like how the universe works. And I go, wow, I kind of feel dumb, but also thank you so much for giving me like something, a term that I could wrap around this whole thing. And so I really like to talk about that a lot because my children, like for instance, about a year ago, we were having dinner. My two biological, I have two stepchildren, and they go, Kai was like, Dad, it seems like you're fearless, like nothing scares you. And she would have been 14 at the time. And I go, well, yeah, I mean, and you got to be an optimist and you got to kind of be fearless to be an entrepreneur. I mean, it's to scare it's you. If you don't succeed, you like the whole thing fails, a lot of pressure on you. Um, and she goes, well, when do you get scared? You must get scared. And I go, when I get scared? When everything is going right, because then I know that there's probably a possibility that the rug's going to get pulled or something negative is going to happen. And I go, when I don't get scared? And she goes, when? And I go, when something goes really wrong, when I'm having the really, really bad day. And she's like, that's crazy. And I go, no, because I know that then on the other side of this, something insanely positive is going to happen. And it's happened to me over and over and over and over again. So back to kind of make this full circle is like, that was my first test with the law of polarity, was when it was raising those children out all on my own by myself. It was a test for how much I could handle later on in life. And I think God did that because he was like, look, if you can pass this, then I'm going to let you plateau to the next one and the next one, and the next one, eventually to where we got to like be real estate developers and play with like $3 million. And that was a big deal, right? And that's a lot of stress. And as a serial entrepreneur, you have to be able to handle all those things. You're like juggling like 24 balls every day, sort of thing.
It makes sense. Reminds of me as far as juggling
Yeah.
multiple projects at the same time. That's awesome. I love to hear that, man. Which segues to my next question. So, how did you build three seven-figure businesses? Did it start
From
at that
scratch.
point? Did it start at that point, or
Well, yeah, sort of again. Like, actually, I lied. It would have been with the kids, it would have been like the biggest test.
right?
First one was with the negative part of the law of polarity was in 2000, in 2008, I graduated from North Dakota State University, got one of the last internships down here in Colorado for architecture wise, and before the Great Recession hit, landed at a really good firm, boutique. As far as design goes, like they were well known in Boulder, and moved here in the fall of 2008. Lasted 9 months, and then the Great Recession hit, and I got laid off. And so that's what bore the first firm, the architecture firm, was there was no one hiring at that time. A lot of people don't know this, but 50% of the architects, engineers, and general contractors in the AEC community were laid off at that point. No one was hiring, and so I had to find my own work. And you want to talk about like the education again? What it did for me is, well, I like to think of myself as a contrarian. If you go look me up on LinkedIn too, again, you'll see like my preferred pronouns are positive reactionary, because that's what I try to be, is like a positive reactionary to these negative things happening in my life when they do. And so getting laid off like that, um, I fell back on my trade skills, and I was like, look, I'm not moving back to North Dakota. I want to put out a Craigslist ad, and like, I bet there's housewives in Boulder that need handyman work done. And I bet they're tired of dealing with like these old gruffy men who maybe have a substance issue and smell like cigarettes and all that. And I go, what's the opposite? I go, the opposite's me. So I looked up like competitors' ads on Craigslist, and Craigslist used to be great for this kind of stuff. And it sure enough, like they fit the bill. You could just tell it was like poor grammar and it was not well written and stuff. And so like I was like, I'm gonna write the opposite ads. So I I'm not joking when I say this, Dr. B. Like it read something like, I tried to look them up back. I couldn't find them, but I wish I could find the originals. It was something like though, like handsome, well educated, sober, master's degree in architecture, handyman. And I can do all of these things. And the phone rang off the hook. And so I did handyman work for cash, never took unemployment for like 3 or 4 months, eventually landed this side work doing CAD work where we were taking like the 2D drawings and turning them into 3D, because that's sort of the industry was shifting. Then I landed a house. Then I landed a clinic and actually brought that clinic back to the architecture firm because I needed to work with a licensed architect for it. And that's that I kept using that formula to get architecture work through Craigslist. It was a very guerrilla technique, but other architects who were too foo-foo and to do it wouldn't do it. And I was like, oh, I've kind of found a niche here. Then I called my best friend, who then is now my business partner, Al Gorup, and I go, hey, I think I have like a methodology to get work. How much money do you got? And he goes, I got a couple months saved. And I go, look, the apartment right above me just opened up. You should come down. Let's try it. I know we're not even licensed. We have to be careful about how we navigate and do design work, team up with the other architects and all that. And we did that. And we starved for 3 years. We barely made our own little payroll. We paid ourselves just enough to get going. So we were like that typical garage story, but out of an apartment from 2010, 2013. Then the economy started to pick up. Then that's when we picked up the teaching gig to help supplement. Then we started hiring because we got enough work. Then eventually got licensed in 2015, and then we could really advertise ourselves as licensed architects. And it's been a beautiful, like solid, steady, slow trajectory of growth up until now. So this would be our 15th year in existence. In 2017, which would have been our 7th year, we went, I don't think we're going to fail. Like I think we've built something that is in it last, and we should tell our story. And that's actually why we started our podcast, Inside the Firm podcast, because we wanted to share with our generation of people like millennials and Gen Z that, hey, you can still do it. You can still be an entrepreneur, and the American dream is alive and well. Yes, we do not have this perfect set of cards that the boomers were dealt. But that's the challenge. The challenge is like we have a very crappy hand of cards, but we're still playing the game. So we have to play very, very carefully. We have to be methodical, disciplined, all of those kinds of things. And that's what started the first firm. And then along the way, we did our first design build project, which then led to another design build project. Then we became full-fledged contractors. And then eventually we had enough cash to buy a piece of land and be full-fledged real estate developers. So that's the shortest way I could tell you too with that one, kind of how it all worked out, Dr. B.
I love that. I love that. And what I love is like similar to me. You just keep it positive. You be optimistic because if you're not, then and your team is not, then you're like
Mm-hmm.
almost setting yourself up for a failure, right? So you want to make sure that no matter what you do, you set yourself up for success, right? So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be mindful of your time. What advice would you give to folks on the fence that are Debbie Downers or negatives that are like starting up or in business and or the opposite of us, basically?
Yeah. I want to give them some like advice that I think this is one of my favorite questions to answer. And you asked it in a different way than other people do. But a lot of people ask me like they see the success, they see the track record, and they see like the happiness too because I'm just like free from the anxiety of money. That was one of the biggest things I was trying to accomplish in my life. Like I grew up in a family who just and money was an anxiety, and I just like it's not about possessions for me, it's about freedom from that. That way that like tomorrow I can go fishing. I want to go fishing all day. Uh is I would tell that person so people ask me all the time like when's the best time to start a business? I go during a Great Recession or a Great Depression. That's the best time to start a business. They go, what? And I'm like, there isn't a better time, because because you will be backed into a corner of a corner of a corner. There's the way diamonds are made is it's a piece of coal under intense pressure and heat, and that's what's going to happen to you. You will never be more creative. You will never be more hungry. You will never be more driven. And you will never be more disciplined to not make mistakes, not make big mistakes. You'll be careful about how you do it. And if you can figure out how to eke out a profit and find a niche and exploit it during a Great Depression or a recession, guess what happens after you come out on the other side of that? You crush. You crush, right? And you hopefully keep all of those fundamentals in your mind about how you got there during the really, really hard times. It's easy to start a business during a boom. And it's scary because you haven't learned any maybe hard lessons or, leaned your processes and got things in place that you need to in that kind of a way.
Agreed. No, agreed 100%. Yeah, it's similar to me. I think I survived the pandemic, and now who's better than me now, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. I love that.
Hey man, one of the last questions, or next and last questions is, did you get any mentorship along the way, whether it's former professors or individuals that you looked up to that kind of helped you along the way as well? Did you kind of figured it out on your own?
Oh, no, no. Yeah, the mentors is so important. It's such a mature thing to try to that you need to just lean into that and go, I don't know everything. I need to find people who are willing to talk to me and help me out and along the way. There's two big ones that I want to give a shout out to. And the first one is his name is Bruce, and he's a general contractor, and he was the first entrepreneur I ever knew. So I tried farming with my dad. I grew up in Northwest North Dakota between a sugar beet farm and a cattle ranch. Rural kid. Not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially in the construction industry. Like I didn't know any architects, right? I didn't know any engineers. That wasn't even a word that I knew about. So I tried farming with my dad one summer, and I lasted a week. I was 13. It wasn't because I was adverse to hard work. It was I didn't get along with my dad. The work was I didn't like it. It was pretty awful for a 13-year-old. Like you're waking up at every 3 or 4 hours, and it's just you don't really the mosquitoes and the humidity, all that. And so I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna call your best friend up, who's a general contractor. I'm gonna see if I can just pick up garbage or whatever. So I called Bruce that night and I said, hey, I don't want to work. I don't want to work with my dad anymore. Like, do you have anything? Like, I will just clean job sites or whatever. And he goes, oh yeah, you could be my gopher. I'll pay you 7.25 an hour. And I go, cool, gopher. What's that? And he's like, well, you're gonna go for this, go for that. When you're done going for the things, then you can come up on the roof and learn how to roof. I was the best gopher you ever had, Dr. B, because I wanted to get up on that roof and learn how to do it. And so I was so enthusiastic about the work. I think and then I was picking things up about how to do things, and I was shingling right with the guys. And about halfway through the summer, he pulls me aside at a lunch one day, and he goes, "Hey, how much do you think I'm charging the customer for every hour of labor that I'm paying you?" And I go, 7.25. And he laughed, and I was embarrassed. And he goes, no, that's not how it works. He goes, I'm charging them 2, 3, maybe even 4 times your labor. And I go, isn't that like immoral? And he goes, no, 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 no. This is how it works. He goes, there's downtime that I have to account for. There's insurance. There's going and getting the job. Plus, as an entrepreneur, like part of me taking a risk on you and everything else is that the reward is profit. And so I have to factor that all in. And so he explained service-based business to me as a 13-year-old. And then I took a step back and I looked at how his relationship with money was compared to my dad. I had the rich dad, poor dad experience without knowing that book. And he goes, and he didn't have this anxiety around it. It's not that he again had all these possessions. It was just wasn't this anxiety about it. Whereas my dad had just a huge piece of anxiety about it, just constantly worrying, complaining about money. Bruce wasn't like that. So at the end of the summer, he goes, "Hey, what do you want to be?" And I go, "I want to be you. Like, how do I become you?" And he said one of the most mature things I've ever heard like any other man say. And he goes, "You don't work for me next year then." And which was difficult to say. I know now as a general contractor, like finding good people is difficult. And he goes, you got to work for somebody else and you got to learn a different trade. And after that, then you go to learn. And so I did that from 13 to 21, learned how to do a different trade every single summer. And that was one of the best mentors I had right away. The second one is an architect named Jerry Boland. And he took us under our wing when we were unlicensed, teamed up with us on projects. And he's kind of like Grandpa Gary or Jerry. My kids know him. They call him Grandpa Jerry. And if it wasn't for Jerry, we probably wouldn't have got licensed. We wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't have had the correct mentorship that we had to do. And we're just so grateful for him looking after us in that kind of a way and teaching us because he wanted to pass the torch. I think that's what he saw in us. Is he was like, these guys are worth my time to try to pass the torch, and they're gonna do good work. I can trust them with this knowledge. So those two ones were super huge. And again, I think that's the message I would give to all your listeners is like find somebody who's willing to give you their time and is a good-hearted, souled person and just wants to do better through you, through mentorship. You'll find those people. The most rich people, I work with so many wealthy people, obviously, as an architect, a builder, a developer, people are spending millions of dollars. We're handling a lot of money. The myth about rich people being like these stingy people who don't want to give any time and are selfish is like it's not real. I know so many wealthy people that like once they get to a certain point, one of the most fulfilling things that they want to do with their time is just give it back and give the knowledge to people. It's like don't be afraid to reach out to those folks. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, case in point, like my mentor for real estate, for multifamily, Mike Ely, shout out to him as well. Although I did pay for his mastermind and all that, but like, yeah, we're still in touch today, and yeah, and like he doesn't have to do what he's doing. He wants to give back and leave a legacy.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, man. Where can people find more information about you? I enjoyed our conversation. Sorry for the little delay, but we made it. We made it happen.
Made it.
Where can we find more information about you and your services or your podcast? All the above.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love it if your listeners headed over to Inside the Firm podcast and checked it out. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all the major platforms. We do 2 shows a week. One show, and what I'm going to try to reach out to you because I know we were going to have you on our show for the Monday morning show, which is other professionals like Dr. B. We have a wide range of guests there. And then the Friday show is me and Al talking shop, architecture, engineering, construction, real estate development, how to be an entrepreneur, lessons we've learned along the way. And then you can check me out on LinkedIn, LANCE, Lance, last name Cayko, Cayko. That's LANCE, last name Cayko. And then go to f9productions.com, sign up for our newsletter. You'll find out we send out one newsletter a month. You can see all the cool stuff we're designing, building, developing, etc.
Lance Cayko, everybody. Thank you so much for being on my show. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me, Dr. B.
Lance Cayko. Hi, everybody. Dr. B here, Dr. B Uncensored. Hopefully, you enjoyed that episode. Remember, you are one big deal away. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel now. Take care.